Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we're finally starting to learn a little bit more about the priorities of this new Suns front office. The draft is coming up, free agency not long after that, big trades, and of course a bunch of current Suns players. So if we know what the Suns are targeting, who makes sense? A big offseason outlook. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Offseason Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Friday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, folks, brought to you by, well, we don't even have the newsletter to plug, Ben. I can't even do that anymore. Brought to you by ourselves. Hit subscribe or follow if you haven't already. Joining me to talk through the new head coaching candidates, James Jones' legacy. Yeah, that's right, a GM's legacy, and more. From the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member, how are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
I'm good. We could say brought to you by, I don't know, our webcams, StreamYard, whatever it is that we use. I'm good. I'm just...
My hat, my new Locked On hat.
Ooh, nice hat, by the way. I did say that to you pre-show. Got it to you. You said it was a birthday gift, so better late than never, or early for next year, so not bad, but I'm stoked, man. I'm ready to talk about GM's legacy talk.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, we'll close there. Dan Bickley wrote a column on it today that I think can get our creative juices flowing. But let's start here. What's up?
I was just going to say, little tease, better player or better career? We didn't talk about that pre-show, but I thought that was kind of funny. Better GM career.
Yeah. We could have that debate. I'm going to probably...
It's actually kind of... Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Okay, so let's get to this segment. I think that the conversation is going to go in a bunch of different directions here, and I want it to on purpose because it is only May 8th, 9th here as we're talking, and there's a lot to be decided in terms of a coach to continue to set this identity of this team in motion, and a lot of off-season to get through before the player acquisition stuff really kicks into gear. But, I mean, if you want to boil it down to a Michigan State type player, you can do that. Either way, we heard some elements of what the Suns would want out of their players going forward at the two press conferences that we've heard this offseason, Ben. So, what players fit that? Let's just start on this team's roster, because this was one that I was thinking about, because it's somebody that I think it's not an awesome place to start, but this is where we're at in the offseason, folks. Somebody that the Suns have to make a decision on this summer, Nick Richards. Nick Richards is a player where I think his energy and his hustle level, even like his physical conditioning at times, things like that, dating all the way back to Kentucky, have kind of fluctuated based on the situation he's in or just, swoons and ups and downs of the season. The Suns obviously have a lot to figure out at the center spot. Nick Richards feels to me like a guy that, they've said, Ishbia and Gregory now have both said, there's going to be guys we make decisions on, even if we think they're talented or they're already in the mix where they're just not a Suns player. I don't, this is weird to pinpoint him, but he was the guy that came to mind first of like, maybe that's just not where they're going to go for the reasons I just laid out.
Yeah, let's debate that really quickly. Okay, I love these kind of conversations because I think we have those kind of polarizing conversations in Arizona all the time. Okay, you want to get rid of Torey Lovullo. What's the option after? Oh, you want to get rid of Kyler Murray. Okay, what's your plan B? You want to get rid of Nick Richards, Brendon, and I'm not saying you do, but then what's plan B? Is Nick Richards, is he more of a backup center than he is a starter? Probably. But are you going to find a better backup on the open market who knows your system or at least knows the players around him for nothing? Especially when you gave up 3 second-round picks. That feels a little steep for me.
The opportunity cost part of it, I think, is valid, and that obviously plays a part, even though it's not really what we're talking about right now. But if you're just asking me at face value, I mean, the other opportunity cost is he makes like $5 million, so that's a part of what I'm talking about too. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know if the alternative is better, but I'm saying that I think that those are the kinds of decisions that they're telling us they are prepared to make. And Richards came to mind as an example of somebody that could be on the cutting room floor as a result of that, where, hey, if you're going to be really good one game and not very good the next, if you're going to have the kind of boneheaded mistakes on both sides of the floor that we saw and not always play with effort and really wear your heart on your sleeve the way that Richards did, you might just be not for us. But I mean, as far beyond that, I mean, Cody Martin probably is the other direction. He's another player they have to make a decision on. He's somebody I could see the Suns saying, we want contagious effort, guys like that. But I still, honestly, Ben, continue to just come back to the fact that Booker, the rookies, and maybe I'll add Cody Martin now, are probably the only locks. What about Bol?
You think?
Because he's somebody we've talked about before. And I'm not quite sure I don't know if Brian Gregory was thinking of Bol with some of the things he was saying.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. If I had to make a guess right now, I don't think Bol would be on this team next year because of the things. It's not just with what Brian Gregory said. It's the stuff that Matt Ishbia said in terms of like, I can't remember exactly what he said on Arizona Sports, but everyone felt like he was just talking about Beal of like, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here type of thing. I think some of that was also
he said that in response to a question about Beal. So that's
okay. Yeah. So that's also okay. So obviously,
I think it was
Beal,
kind of a shot at Beal.
Yeah, it was definitely a shot at Beal. But I think also that kind of does pertain a little bit to Bol because a little bit about his engine. I mean, one of the reasons why they got so upset with why Bud benched Bol is because there's a scrum going on and he's shooting layups. Like a little bit of that competitive spirit is something what I feel like they've continued to talk about and how those two have self-described themselves as very competitive people. I would lean towards Bol probably not being here next year, but it's not me saying I don't want him here. Yeah, I just think the younger, rangy players who can hit an open shot, I'm not going to say no to that, but I even drank a little bit of the Kool-Aid, which I regret fully because I should have stuck to what I said. He is what he is. If he was going to be something different by now, I would have moved on. I'm surprised though. I don't mean to change the subject, but I'm surprised you're so much of a like lock. Cody Martin's here next year, but it depends what your roster looks like next year.
I don't necessarily think it's like an actual lock, but I think that he fits the mold of the conversation we're having right now.
That's fair.
So what about in the draft? You know, you and I have not started to dive into any of these prospects all that much. We have not gotten to the point in the calendar where we're hearing concrete reports of who the Suns are interested in or even who they've worked out or any of that. We'll get there before long. But what Gregory said change about how you are thinking of the types of players the Suns will target? We talked yesterday about, maybe he actually was leaning toward a guy like Kyle Filipowski, whereas other people in the room might be more of the reason that the Suns ultimately went with Dunn and with Oso. But either way, college is probably the place where Gregory's impact is going to be felt the most in the draft. What do you expect this year with pick number 29 and 53, I think it is, and just kind of the types of dudes they'll target?
Yeah, I kind of just disagree with how much Gregory really knows about college basketball in terms of like the prospects coming in. I mean, he hasn't been in the ranks in the past couple of years, but that's a different argument. If there's a guy that I really want for the Suns, and I think he's the guy that takes, because free agency is, now there's guys you have to make decisions on, of course, but free agency doesn't start till June 30th. The NBA draft is June 25th. I think if the Suns get Walter Clayton Jr., I would love that pick. That is, if you're talking about the next version of the Suns team that has a little bit of grit, been told no before, shot 38% from three, led the Gators in scoring last year, and I'm not so sure about how much of the of the tournament you watch, down by double digits in multiple games, late in games. He led them back. Calm, cool, collected. 4-year guy, senior, baked in. He probably doesn't have a super high ceiling, but a pretty good floor. That's a guy I could see be the Suns' starting point guard and just be a rock solid guy for years to come. But that's maybe my own bias too. Obviously, my affinity for Florida basketball, but I've watched this guy play for a little bit now, and I think he'd fit in really good here and fits the mold of what the Suns want. It's another guard, so you're probably moving on from either Gillespie or taking this guy. You'd have time to make that decision. And then same as well with Martin. I just think you're not going to have that many guards on the roster, but if there's a guy I really like combined with talent and that he fits the culture, I think Walter Clayton Jr. is that guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I what's funny is I keep coming back to trying to distinguish like what is the Suns mold going to be going forward, and I honestly feel like the types of things that I come back to are already how James Jones tended to approach the draft, which was older, really competitive, smart, probably, chip on their shoulder. I think that comes if you're an older guy in the draft. Typically, you weren't a hot shot prospect, and you kind of had to take your lumps and evolve and develop over time, and that all fits in. So, yeah, I mean, I could see James Jones liking somebody like a Walter Clayton Jr. So it's hard for me to distinguish there, but I think it's a good take by you. I'll say the trade side of things with KD, and you can just take the last part in terms of if there's any free agents that catch your eye, Ben.
Yeah, I got a couple, so go for it.
The Durant trade, to me, I already was coming around to it the more that I thought about it, and I think we've discussed it on the pod, so you're probably not going to be surprised to hear me say this, but depending on what happens the rest of the way, the Knicks package with OG Anunoby, I could see the Suns being really intrigued by that. Now, at the same time, I think that, frankly, even though he barely scored any points in the series, the way that Jabari Smith Jr. acquitted himself, just in terms of a toughness and competitiveness standpoint, was really impressive. Holding his own in a playoff environment early in his career, the way that he did. So I think he could be up there too. So I'm not saying it's like, they're just going to go get Anunoby now, but those are the two of the guys that have kind of risen for me of just thinking about it through the lens of what Gregory has been saying. But what about you from a free agency standpoint?
Well, really quickly, there's two guys, and I'll get to that in just a second, but you didn't mention a guy who's played pretty well defensively in the playoffs. Don't look at his offensive stats because he's been building a house with a bunch of bricks, but Bridges, still no? Still rather have OG. Just checking in.
Yeah, it's easy.
Okay.
And I
just want to check
think
in.
you can trade Durant back for the guy you gave him up for. I think that's just the whole thing's silly to me.
Very silly. Two guys. I don't want to run too far. One guy who's 29 years old, one guy who's 32 years old. Two guys that I think might fit the culture here and what I think work around Booker. Gertrude Yabusele, we all watched him last year with France, tore it up as well. And then Dorian Finney-Smith for the Lakers. And then just a wild card, Jordan Goodwin, another guard, but a guy who does kind of the things that the Suns are kind of looking for. Jump on the ground. He can't really shoot very well, but try to be a bulldog defensively. I really like Dorian Finney-Smith out of these three guys. And again, I'm being realistic. These are guys I think the Suns could get. Now, could the Lakers pay DFS because they want to just keep him on their team? Probably. But those are the type of players you're looking at. A little bit older guys that shoot the three ball decently well. Not good one, but you can surround Booker with. Is where I kind of went with it.
Yeah, I think you're in the right mold for sure. We don't have to get too deep, but Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be way out of the Suns' price range. I like the.
He's already. I don't disagree with you because the Lakers they have to
even
keep
if the Suns get out of the second apron, the Suns they're going to be able to offer a maximum of the taxpayer mid level, which is like $5 million.
Yeah,
that would be like a 75% pay decrease for Dorian Finney-Smith.
Absolutely. Jeannie Buss has flinched at that before. So just to kind of defend myself, she did that with Alex Caruso.
Yeah, and then somebody else would snap him up for much more than $5 million. So, I think Yabusele is good. I think plenty of those types of guys, those are all right in the exact type of mold that we're talking about. Definitely good to get people's juices going on the types of targets the Suns might be looking at. Let's get to two new head coaching candidates that came on the radar Thursday and what they tell us about the Suns search next. First today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members throughout the 2025 NBA playoffs, and it's called, you guessed it, They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. All you got to do is place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours right away. Offer valid noon to midnight, the day after the game. Terms apply. I don't think we've had a 50-piece in the postseason yet. I believe Joker had 42. I'm not sure anyone has gotten there, but we've seen Jason Tatum do it in the past. We've seen plenty of guys. Jalen Brunson, frankly, is a play to do it on any given night. I think Donovan Mitchell got pretty close. Sign up for Dash Pass. Unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long, all postseason long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can get a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the next day with the $20 or more order with code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here.
I'm sorry, you did mention the 50-piece. Jason Tatum, he had 50 points, right? Right? He's been playing really well in this second round series, so just want to throw that out there.
I'll let you have your Celtics takes anywhere else, but he does not have to do it with the Suns.
I have been so right on this stuff, and no one wants to join.
I never argued with you about it, so take it up with somebody else. Go on Locked On NBA, the squad show, and yell at people. I didn't argue with you about it.
Oh, man, sorry.
I want to talk about 50, the two head coaching candidates here.
It's fair. You talked about the 50 points on the DoorDash. Got you. Go to the head coaches, all right? Go to them.
Jason Tatum does have, I did say his name because he has done a 50-point game in a playoff game before, but I wasn't saying he did it yesterday because, of course, he did not. But the two new guys on the radar for the Suns reportedly via Michael Scotto over at Hoops Hype. Ben, pretty interesting names, actually, after doing some digging on each of them. And then we'll just sort of take stock of where we are because, I mean, I'm looking at this article. There's like a dozen names at this point. But
yeah,
the first one is Adam Caporn. He is a Wizards assistant, and before that he was a Nets assistant, so not exactly like the most high profile, but he's also the head coach of the Australia men's national team, and he's been an assistant there for like a decade at this point already. So that's a guy with head coaching experience, NBA assistant experience, and a little bit off the beaten path to go in that international direction. That one was one. The other one was Ben Sullivan from the Rockets. Now, that wasn't like listed as news in Scotto's report, Ben, but we have not talked about this guy, and I don't remember seeing him pop up in the past. So either we missed it or maybe Scotto didn't realize that wasn't out there before and he didn't drop it as a scoop, but it actually was anyway. I don't know. Either way, this one really caught my eye because he has coached the Rockets Summer League team the past 2 years. He's the lead assistant under Ime Udoka. They worked together in Boston during, a really obviously great period in the Celtics run. And Sullivan's been an assistant for a bunch of years in a bunch of different really high-profile places. Obviously, coaching the Rockets Summer League team at this point is a big ask, a big task. Like that's develop Amen Thompson, develop Jabari Smith, develop Reed Shepherd. Like that's a big thing for them at this point in their trajectory. And he's also has this reputation from what I was able to read, Ben, of being a shooting guru guy, like one of these shot doctor coaches. He worked under Chip England in the past, who's the guy who helped develop Kawhi's shot, has worked with Jalen Williams and even Josh Giddey and others in Oklahoma City the past few years. I don't know, like the thing we always have to keep in mind when these names come up is it's really hard to know how interested the Suns actually are in this early phase in any of these guys. But those were two pretty interesting names that I think, again, just continue to speak to the Suns being pretty wide-ranging with how they're approaching this.
Well, yeah, it's the only truth that they've told so far in these press conferences, or at least leaking to the media, is that they are going to cast a wide net. The thing about him being an assistant under Ime Udoka, I just wonder, because obviously you're going to make a guy your head assistant who at least somewhat relates to you, right? Or at least somewhat gets your vision. It's the guy I would assume you're mentoring the most. I don't know if the Suns need a Ime Udoka guy. I don't know how much of Ime Udoka, who's a tough guy, get up in LeBron James's face. Maybe it is. Maybe he is a relationships guy that can relate to players as well, stand by his guys, get the respect of his guys. But
Seems to be more of the offense to Udoka's defense, if that makes sense. Like, because he does have that player development, shot development kind of background. You know, I don't know if his focus is so much on that side of the ball, but maybe mentality-wise they're similar. I don't know.
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. Could you say the last 5 seconds of what you just said?
I said maybe mentality-wise those two guys are fairly similar, but we can't know that.
Well, that's what I would be curious about. I think personality matters just as much as schematics, and I wonder what guys would relate to this team and get the respect of this team, because, like, Monty Williams wasn't a get-in-your-face kind of guy, and over the last 3 head coaches, he's the one that's bought into the locker room or got the locker room to buy into him. So I wonder if they use the Monty Williams line of mentorship or leadership and then try to find someone who has that, again, with a little bit of better schematics. I don't know if an Ime Udoka type of guy who's kind of a hard ass works in the Phoenix Suns locker room that's going to be led by Devin Booker. That's where I kind of go with it, because I can't break down the X's and O's of every single assistant coach. The thing I care about the most is how is he going to have a relationship with the guys in the locker room, because that has been a huge problem over the last 2 seasons. So the Ime Udoka thing, I just don't know if that works.
Yeah, I mean, he isn't Ime Udoka, so
no, he's not. Like, he's not.
We can't evaluate their X's and O's. We also don't fully know their personalities. But I think you're right to say, in general, if it is similar, that's kind of been the mold of Vogel and Bud a little bit, right? So that might not be the direction you want to go personality-wise a third straight time. And I guess that would just play out over the interview process for them to get to know the actual way that these guys operate and lead. The thing that interested me too, seeing the Sullivan name pop up there, is that's 2 Rockets assistants.
Yep.
And there's also 2 Mavs assistants on here as well. And there's 2 Cavs guys, and there's a bunch of names, so I don't want to overdo it. But there's also a Heat, Chris Quinn. And I'll just say, too, like a caveat I think I've given before, a lot of these reports this time of year are agents wanting their clients to be lobbied as part of these searches, even if they actually aren't. So there is a lot of smoke signals, but I wonder how much the Suns would be willing to play the game of talking to coaches from teams that they might get young players from. And I mean, maybe if you're really being a conspiracy person about it, you would say like they're getting a little bit of intel on those teams before they make a trade. Or if you hire a guy and then you make a trade with that team, you get a little bit of built-in familiarity that can go a long way. So it could be either one of those. It also could be absolutely nothing, and I'm just making it all up. But it did catch my eye.
That's really smart of you to think of that. I didn't think of it like that, because if you're going to make a trade with the Rockets and you're eyeing an Eason or Jabari, like, forget about the players, people in the comment section. It's not just what I'm naming. It's if you hire that coach, he could be able to tell you, stay away from Jabari. He's got an attitude problem or whatever, right? Or if it's the Knicks or the Mavericks or wanting to gain players from them, that's really good intel. Or be able to see, it seems like relationships mean a lot to this new Suns front office. Mentioned Bartlestein, all of his relationships. Maybe they want to value or figure out how much relationships they have with other players and agents and get guys to take 1-year deals. That's pretty ingenious that you thought of that. So I didn't take that account into it, but especially with the Rockets, the one that's been linked the most to Kevin Durant, that's really interesting.
Yeah. If Sullivan's been around, coaching Jabari Smith at summer league and whatever, and developing the jump shot of Tari Eason a little more and whatever. It's
Or
like,
the
if you
Reed
happen to
Shepherd
get,
could say, "Hey, that
I'm
guy's
still
a diamond."
leaving Reed Shepherd out of the conversation because I
Whatever.
don't want
Let's
Rockets fans in our comments
No,
because they
that's
tend
fine.
to
That's
get
fine.
very touchy about Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
whatever.
that type of thing.
Might
It's
be-
like that could be a benefit to have if the summer ends up going that way. But obviously, a lot of dominoes to fall between now and then. Let's get to the final segment, and building off of Dan Bickley's column today at ArizonaSports.com, what is James Jones' legacy as he steps away from his perch as Suns GM? Next. First, today's show brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV can also be an Xbox? All you got to do is turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from College Football 25 to Call of Duty or Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can also watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. I just like watching stuff in as high quality as I can. I got a TV. I know it's not, it's my fault. But there's nothing worse than when something, the color is not great, the quality's not great, whatever it might be, gaming, watching, any of it. That's the part that I love about the Fire TV is its pristine, beautiful visuals. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. All right, Ben, let's close it out here. Quick segment on James Jones, and he is, of course, not really a part of anything going on with the Suns at this point. I think Gregory said the polite thing at his press conference, but we all can assume that the special advisor tag will be gone before long. And
how do I
James
become
Jones'
a special
tenure,
advisor?
Be a GM for 7 years and then earn some respect and,
and
not
then,
want to
and then get shoved out and then
disrespected.
become the scapegoat. Nice.
Yeah,
We'll do.
Or, build the team that goes 36 and 46. That's probably part of it. But so look, I think there's a lot of things you can poke holes in. But what I always like to remind people, and I think this is where I'll start the conversation and see what you think, is that he basically rescued this franchise from about the bottom of the bottom. Once upon a time, he came in the back door and Brian Gregory, Ryan McDonough, he was hired as a VP of basketball ops and was kind of breathing down McDonough's neck and eventually took his spot. But he very quickly earned the respect and the trust of Robert Sarver, and that mattered because nobody else ever had. He was able to get the autonomy to recruit a coach that was really in demand in Monty Williams. Eventually, his relationships, I think, had a lot to do with, why he was able to help get the Chris Paul thing done and just the respect that he had around the league. And built a team that overachieved at a really high level. So there's a lot of nits you can pick, and I'll pick them throughout this segment, but you can't, flush that down the toilet just because the end got ugly.
How about this? We don't know how much of the end was him, and I think what we're starting to get a feel for is that a lot of it maybe wasn't him pushing the buttons. Here's a take for you. I think we're going to miss James Jones a lot sooner than we think. We all thought the big bad man was gone, but as I've mentioned before, because I wanted James Jones gone because I wanted Mr. Outside hire. I didn't thought Matt Ishbia was just going to hire a yes man. So if I could press the F go back button, I would. But at this point, yeah, I do think we're going to miss James Jones sooner rather than later because the moves he did make, at least in the draft, I thought were pretty good. Yeah, he missed out on Halliburton. You don't bat 1,000. Still, it's not like Jalen Smith is a nobody in the NBA. He's a
nobody. That was a huge miss that altered the course of the franchise's history. We don't have to downplay stuff just to make him look good. They needed a future point guard. Tyrese Halliburton had already fallen from like the highest he could have gone. It was already a news story in the moment when he was falling, and the Suns were everybody's assumption he's not getting past them. And he drafted somebody who was expected to go in the 20s. That really, really, really made a huge dent in the trajectory that the team was on. I'm not gonna let him off the hook for that just because I want to paint a nice picture for him on his way out.
Well, to be fair, he did have at least somewhat of a history taking those kind of guys in terms of like older players. Cam Johnson is one of those guys as well. So for
James Jones was the lead decision maker in 3 drafts that the Suns selected first round players in. His 3 first round picks as the general manager were Cam Johnson trade back, which was a huge risk that ended up working out. But that
worked out pretty good.
Yeah, worked out great. That one I'm not going to argue about. Great, but it was a could have gone either way at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge
Cody White
run.
Was surprised that he got drafted there.
Yeah. Then the other draft, he didn't make a pick until Jalen Smith. That was the next year.
Yeah,
and then great. So then there's the next one. And then what I meant to say is he didn't take a pick after Jalen Smith until Ryan Dunn. Those are his 3 first-round picks, being the lead decision maker. He was in the room in 2018 when the Suns got Ayton and Bridges, but he wasn't the GM. So,
well, he also
Dunn, and now Dunn, everybody's arguing about who the heck even made that pick. So
I'm going to be honest.
I wouldn't say that James Jones was some kind of god in the draft.
I don't think. Well, yeah, but the draft in the NBA is a crapshoot, and it's pretty hard to even bat 33%. Let's just go that far with him. The one mistake that I think is the most glaring about James Jones is trading a first-round pick for Landry Shamet and then immediately giving him an extension. I think that was the one that's worse than Tyrese Halliburton because, man, it's the draft. It's a crapshoot. It's hard. It's hard to get a guy right. I understand Halliburton fell, and that sucks, but I'd put the Landry Shamet one worse because they desperately needed a shooter, and they went and got a guy who's been on 4 teams, and at that point, 4 years or 3 teams in 4 years. And then they immediately gave him an extension. But overall, I mean, got Ayton on a lesser than extension than what he was supposed to get, if I'm not mistaken, because the Pacers matched it, and that was No, but he didn't get the one with escalators because the Pacers gave him it first, and they matched the Pacers. So technically a little bit lower. That is not he did do that.
Well, he wasn't going to make All-NBA. He was never going to get the escalators. That was just semantics.
Oh, he could have.
He's
especially
a mid-player.
Well, that was the year.
He wasn't going to get an All-Star berth to make the escalators kick in.
Well, that was in 2022 after the Suns lost in the second round. So I guess Ayton still wasn't on his high horse, but he was coming off the 2021 year where everyone thought he was awesome. I think James Jones is underrated as a general manager. I don't think he's elite. But I think of what we have now, I'd have more confidence in James Jones running this team than Brian Gregory.
Yeah, I think the ultimate thing that changed is that he had Sarver's trust and he didn't have Ishbia's, right? And to me, that was how I would always generalize Jones's superpower as a GM to the extent that I would say he had one, is that he accomplished the task at hand. Right. And I think that ultimately did at times prove to be his downfall as well. Right. Like he would always have that metaphor that he would talk about in press conferences, the 5x5, the note card, where he would say, I build a roster. There's 5 positions on a basketball court. I want 5 options at each position. And my job is to fill those holes. It's like, I think the league changed on him a little bit to where that type of approach didn't really make as much sense anymore. I think that there was like even the years when he built the roster around the big 3, 2023, he went for full on, all in outside of Eric Gordon on these. He called them mid-prime veterans. That was his buzzword that summer. And almost all of them sucked. Then the next year, which was last summer, he went all in on vets. Mason Plumlee, Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, whatever. Well, then the team didn't have a lot of dynamic ability and upside. So and then the Jalen Smith pick, it's like, we need a 4. We need a big 4. Okay, well, the draft was telling you, the league was telling you, the board was falling down in such a way that you wanted Tyrese Halliburton, actually. That's actually what you wanted because he's a better player than Jalen Smith. And he's
also pretty big.
he happened to play the same position as Chris Paul, but Chris Paul was friggin' 38 years old or whatever. So I think that approach was like the best thing and at times the worst thing about him. And I just think at the end of the day, by the time Ishbia came in, like their views of things didn't seem to be aligned. There you go. I walked my way into that same buzzword, but that ended up being the downfall.
You think he was a better GM than he was player? Like not better. He had a better career so far as a general manager than he did as a player.
It's just hard.
He went to 8 straight finals.
Yeah, but what did he? More finals than I'll ever be in, but also what did he do to accomplish that? I mean,
he was
his
just
career
LeBron
high
James'
was
boy.
9.3 points per game.
Who was
his
that
career
with?
High in minutes was 24. It was with the Suns in his third season.
Was it the Suns? Wow.
So I mean, he was he had like
stuck around for a while.
He had like 8 seasons where he was a real factor playing for good teams. Won one championship when he was still like getting minutes.
Should have been. Oh well, yeah.
It's an awesome
the other ones he won.
lifer career, but I think he had a lot more to do with what he did as a GM, directly impacting the success of things. So,
well, when you put it like
I would say
I would agree.
GM.
But at the, I mean, listen. Do you think Okay, last question. Who would you have trusted more to run this team, Gregory or James Jones?
I think the answer is neither. I mean,
God, we're so screwed.
Well, the answer is somebody who's going to save Ishbia from his worst instincts. Jones already proved he couldn't do that, and I don't believe Gregory's going to. So
that's a good point. I guess it's a good cop-out answer. I didn't think that you were going to say, but it's pretty good. James Jones's legacy. Does he ever get a GM job? Another one?
I could see him getting one, but not next. I think he'll have to go back into a different kind of do his time in some other kind of capacity, and then maybe he works his way back up. He's only 44, so he could do it.
I thought he'd get it with the at one point I thought when the Lakers obviously didn't get Luka that at some point he could be the GM of the Lakers given his relationship with LeBron. But Pelinka's never getting out of there.
I could see, I mean, Miami runs a very tight ship. They've had the same people at the top of that brain trust for a very long time. But if I could see them trusting him to come in, that could be something.
It'd be one of those franchises. It's not going to be like Charlotte or something random.
He's also actually from Miami, which is part of the thing with the Heat too. Like he played for them, but he's also born and raised, went to the U. So
my last thing I would say is, just so you know, I was firmly on the boat when James Jones originally got the job as the GM. I thought they were firmly trying to lure LeBron here. Now, this is 2018. This was 7 years ago, but I firmly thought that's what they were trying to do, and that's why they gave him that position. But rest my case. Or 2019.
What's funny is if we're putting ourselves back in that point in time, I did not think it was to get LeBron because LeBron was never going to come here. But I did think that if we remember, he was also pretty gosh darn unqualified. So,
well, that's why I thought it was for
right?
LeBron.
Like all of a sudden, he's building a team that's in the finals and he's winning Executive of the Year, I believe he won. And it's like, all right, well, okay, he's pretty good at this. So I'm not saying that means Brian Gregory will be awesome, but I am saying like crazier things have happened. People that appear to be totally in over their heads somehow pull it out. So maybe the same thing can happen again.
Well, you're absolutely right, which is why I remember thinking that when I was 19 years old, like, the hell is this guy? Classic Sarver move. But I thought it was to get LeBron or make a push to get LeBron, although I'm with you, it was probably never going to happen. He was always headed to LA. So, anyways, good talk.
Good talk. I always like to do that. We're never going to talk about James Jones again, but he just was here for 7 years. We just forget about him immediately. It's kind of nice to look back a little bit. So there you go for your Friday. Hit follow or subscribe. We'll be back Monday getting you ready for the lottery. And that's going to take some heart attack medication or something.
Oh,
get ready,
Brendon,
people.
Could you imagine?
Have some alcohol at your disposal maybe because it's going to be a day.
Oh,
we'll be back for you then. Keep it right here. Talk to you Monday.